For $500,000, I impersonated my brother to care for his blind fiancée. The day she regained her sight, I vanished without a word. We met again at a business interview. I was an intern reporter. Her status restored. She was the powerful heiress of the Miller family. She was being interviewed. I hear that during your illness, thanks to your fiancé, Mr. Johnson's unwavering devotion, the two of you are close to tying the knot. Her lips curved slightly, and she raised her hand to reveal a ring. Yes, he and I are getting engaged. Her gaze, however, intentionally or unintentionally, landed on me in the corner. Before the interview began, the room buzzed with chatter. The heiress being interviewed today is the head of the entire Smith family. I heard that 5 years ago, she went blind and was even disowned by the Smith family. If it weren't for her fiancé's unwavering care, she probably wouldn't have made it. I sat to the side, barely managing a smile. My fingernails, however, dug deep into my palm. Suddenly, my senior colleague, Mr. Williams, turned to me. "Frank, go get me a glass of water to wet my throat." Just as I reached the water dispenser by the door, the main door suddenly swung open. Someone walked in. My mind instantly went blank. In 3 years, Diana had changed almost beyond recognition. Her once slender and delicate figure was now tall, and her facial features had softened. "Excuse me." She spoke indifferently, her gaze sweeping over me as if I were a stranger. There was no pause. She walked onto the stage, flanked by several bodyguards. As she passed by me, I froze in place. A few seconds later, it dawned on me. The 2 years I was by her side were when Diana was at her lowest. She had been disowned by the Miller family, and her eyes were blinded in a car accident. So, of course, she didn't know what I looked like. This is probably for the best. When I returned with the water glass, the interview had already begun. Diana sat on the stage, calmly observing the entire audience. She was answering the business questions. Suddenly, the side door by the stage was pushed open. Chris walked in, smiling and complaining to Diana. "Sorry, Diana. The film crew had some issues. I'm late." He adjusted his suit and sat down next to Diana. The entire room fell silent for a moment. Then the atmosphere immediately became fervent and ambiguous. Mr. Williams held his water glass, turned his head to look at me, as if he had discovered a new continent. "Frank, you and Chris, you actually look a bit alike." I pursed my lips, forced a smile, and said, "He's a big star. You're flattering me too much." "Of course we would, because he and I are biological brothers. I hear that during your illness, thanks to your fiancé, Mr. Johnson's unwavering devotion, the two of you are close to tying the knot." My throat suddenly tightened, and I looked at Diana on the stage. She curved her lips, raising her hand to reveal her left ring finger. On it, she wore a simple silver ring. It was the one I bought from a part-time job to make her happy back then. The distinguished heiress of the Miller family, wearing such an inexpensive ring, seemed out of place. Her fingertips gently stroked it. "Yes, he and I are getting engaged," she said, her gaze sweeping across the audience. Intentionally or unintentionally, it landed on me in the corner. Only for a few short seconds, then she withdrew it. The microphone was handed to Chris again. "Mr. Johnson, I heard you are currently filming director Lewis's movie. He rarely uses new actors. Is Ms. Miller a factor in this?" He admitted with a smile, "Of course. I've always been very confident in my professional abilities, but I also don't deny that Diana has truly done a lot for me. I'm also completely worthy of this favoritism." His generous attitude, on the contrary, won the admiration of many. Someone asked, "Can you tell us the story of how you and Ms. Miller supported each other during your low points?" Chris's smile suddenly froze. In the eerie silence, the flow of time slowed down. After a long while, Diana chuckled softly and took the microphone. "There's nothing much to tell. The memories between him and me, it's enough for just the two of us to know." My eyes suddenly stung. I clutched the pen in my hand and lowered my head, feeling flustered. As soon as I closed my eyes, I would think of the past. As a teenager, Diana had offended many people due to her rebellious nature. After she fell on hard times, some people specifically came to cause trouble. To protect her, I was pushed down the stairs, falling and bleeding all over. The group of people were scared and pushed each other as they ran away. I gritted my teeth and stood up, pretending nothing had happened, and walked back to her side. "Let's go home." Diana, however, suddenly grabbed my hand. "You're hurt. Let's go to the hospital." "I didn't. I smell blood." Her voice suddenly rose, and tears rolled down from her misty eyes. She spoke, "But call my brother's name Chris. When I recover, I will give you the grandest wedding in the world." After the interview, the sky turned gloomy. Outside the venue, the rain was falling densely. Mr. Williams felt his pocket, then started to boss me around again. "Frank, the memory card was left inside. Go back and get it." I trotted along the wet ground. The elevator number jumped to 1. The next second, the door opened. I bumped right into the 2 people inside. Chris was slightly tilting his head, talking to Diana about trivial topics from the film set. Although her expression was indifferent, she listened patiently. Their posture was intimate. Seeing me, Chris's expression suddenly became extremely ugly. Salty, I mumbled an apology, turned around, and planned to take the stairs up. Diana, however, spoke from behind me. "Stop." I froze in place. "Aren't you going to use the elevator? Go up." I slowly turned around, deliberately lowering my voice. "Thank you, Ms. Miller." She told me to use the elevator, but wouldn't move out of the way, just staring at me. "You're also a reporter for today's interview? Why didn't I hear your questions?" I lowered my eyes. "Ms. Miller, I just graduated and returned to the country. I'm still an intern reporter. I don't have the qualification to ask questions." "I see." She responded indifferently, lost in thought. Chris, standing by, glared at me fiercely and said, "Let's go quickly, Diana. We still have to meet Director Lewis and them tonight." Diana finally withdrew her gaze. "Let's go." I stood alone in the ascending elevator, lost in thought. After my parents divorced, my dad took Chris, climbed the social ladder by marrying into the Johnson family, and became a live-in son-in-law. Since I can remember, I had never met Chris. 5 years ago, he suddenly found me. "I'll give you $500,000. You take my place and help me take care of someone." At that time, my mother had passed away from illness, and our family owed a large sum of money. I had no other choice, so I agreed. After meeting, I found out that the person he wanted me to take care of was Diana, the heiress of the Miller family. She was also his fiancée who had just gotten engaged not long ago, and then had an accident. A blind person and a discarded child of a wealthy family who would want to take care of her, he said with a look of disgust. If it weren't for the bad reputation, I would have broken off the engagement with her long ago. At that time, Chris had just debuted. He had taken on a good role, and his career was on a rise. Afraid of being called heartless, he threw this difficult task to me. Diana had lived 18 years smoothly, then suddenly encountered a drastic change. Her temper became very bad. During the initial period of caring for her, I was always mocked by her cold words. I did my job for the money, never arguing back. Until that day, I went to the cemetery to visit my mother and returned a bit late. She started to vent her bad temper again. The rest of the words couldn't be spoken, because I suddenly lowered my head and kissed her. Actually, it was my first kiss, completely unskilled, and because it carried a bit of suppressed anger, it was more like a beast bite. Diana, however, suddenly quieted down. Even the tips of her ears were flushed red. With a hint of malice, I bit her lip again. Then I pulled back a little, holding her shoulders, breathing heavily. "Do you feel it? Do you still think I despise you?" I took the memory card down to find Mr. Williams. I quickly thanked him. As a result, when we arrived, I saw a familiar black Rolls-Royce in the parking lot. I immediately froze. "Ms. Miller and them tonight. Are they here too?" Mr. Williams turned back, winked at me. "I took you to Ms. Miller's dinner party." "Frank, don't underestimate your Mr. Williams's connections." It was too late to regret now. I could only brace myself and follow him in. Fortunately, the private room was very large. Small reporters like us were not even at the same table as Diana and her group. Mr. Williams introduced me to many industry veterans. "This is our company's new recruit this year, a very clever young man named Frank Miller. Come on, Frank, say hello to everyone." As a newcomer, I couldn't avoid toasting. By the end, I was dizzy and only had time to say sorry before covering my mouth and rushing to the restroom. I vomited until I was completely disoriented. I rinsed my mouth, splashed cold water on my face, and walked out. The corridor lights were dim. A familiar figure stood in the shadows by the window. My heart pounded a few times. I originally wanted to pretend I didn't see her and just go back. Just as I took a step, Diana behind me spoke. Word by word, her voice seemed to be intertwined with countless complex emotions. "Frank Miller." My steps forward suddenly froze in place. I swallowed with difficulty, hearing footsteps approaching unhurriedly. I subconsciously closed my eyes. The footsteps stopped in front of me, and a familiar scent approached inch by inch. I opened my eyes and saw her deep, ocean-like eyes. "Ms. Miller." My throat tightened with nervousness. I whispered, "How do you know my name?" She didn't speak, just looked at me for a long while, then straightened her body again. "Your senior colleague took you around a toast. Everyone in the private room knows your name now." Thinking of Mr. Williams's loud voice, my face suddenly felt hot. "I'm sorry. My senior colleague is very good to us newcomers. perhaps a bit overzealous. If it disturbed your enjoyment, Ms. Miller, I apologize. Diana, however, didn't speak again. Under the warm yellow light, she squinted slightly, looking at me with a half-smile. In Reporter Miller's eyes, I seemed to be a very petty person. I lowered my head and said in a muffled voice, I didn't mean that. The next second, a gilded business card was handed to me. You're still an intern, right? There's a job opportunity. Want to try it? When I went back, my head was still a bit dizzy. As soon as I entered the door, Mr. Williams pulled me over. Are you okay, Frank? I rubbed my aching stomach and whispered, Sorry, Mr. Williams, my stomach had surgery before. I can't drink much. He frowned, about to say something. His gaze swept down, landing on the gilded business card in my hand. He widened his eyes in disbelief. Is that Ms. Miller's private business card? I nodded, thinking of a scene just now. That was a legendary private business card, hard to get even with a lot of money, that could directly contact her. I don't accept rewards without merit. I cautiously raised my eyes, not forgetting to disguise my voice. Why would Ms. Miller give such a precious opportunity to an unknown young reporter like me? She slightly curved her lips. Perhaps. I find you more pleasing to the eye. That was indeed a very Diana-like reason. During the 2 years I took care of her, I gradually became familiar with Diana. She would display some rebellious little tempers in front of me. For example, at certain moments, I gritted my teeth, swallowed the fragmented sounds, and tugged at her hair. You can't see. Stop moving around. Under the dim light, the girl slightly raised her head. Her soft bangs brushed over her unfocused eyes. She licked her lips, her fingers pressed against my neck, pressing down slightly. She whispered, Other places are fine. So, you need to be louder. Let me hear it. I came back to my senses, made up a random excuse, and dealt with Mr. Williams. The next day back at the company, my boss called me over. He said kindly, Frank, that popular emotional live variety show recently. Prepare yourself. Go participate in the recording as a special observer. But then, after I started working, the next episode of the show was going to interview Chris and Diana. After that interview, the news of their engagement appeared prominently on the trending topics. As a warm-up promotion for the show, fans in the comments section went crazy. Walked together through the low points, now meeting at the peak. What a beautiful love story. It is said that the Johnson family's company was originally half dead, but thanks to the strong support of the Miller Group, it has now revived. Powerful couple. Not shipping them is not human. I scanned through it quickly, then closed the comment section. The host, Ms. Young, chatted with me while confirming the script. If we can dig out the specific story of Ms. Miller and her fiancé during those 2 years, the show's effect will definitely be very good. I remained silent. I gripped the pen in my hand tightly and softly agreed. Every detail of what happened in those 2 years, I knew better than anyone, but I couldn't say. Chris, relying on the Miller family's resources and connections, was now a popular A-list male celebrity. As the show began, the live stream room was packed with millions of viewers. Under the spotlight, I heard Ms. Young speak. I heard that Ms. Miller and Chris are already discussing marriage. Can you share the emotional journey of the two of you? Chris turned his head to look at her and smiled faintly. I never believed those rumors and slanders about her back then. In my eyes, Diana has always been the one I love most. He gazed at her affectionately. His eyes were so gentle, they almost dripped with tenderness. Diana, however, lowered her eyelashes and smiled. Liar. When I first went blind, how you despised me, have you forgotten? Chris was stunned for a moment. His gaze turned to me, flashing with a hint of ruthlessness. But in front of the camera, he could only force a smile. I don't really remember. Perhaps our feelings grew stronger, and I only remember the sweet parts when we were in love. I glanced at the real-time comments behind me. Words like "so sweet" filled the entire screen. I put down the script, gripped the microphone, and asked Diana a question. It seems there are some differences in your views. Is there another hidden story? Perhaps you could talk about how you both adapted to each other. I originally thought she wouldn't say, but after a moment of silence, Diana still spoke. During the time my eyes first had problems, I was very depressed, resented the whole world, and didn't like him. He left early and returned late every day and had to take care of me in between. One day, he was so busy he was dizzy, the fish was stewing in the pot. He went downstairs to buy salt and forgot to turn off the stove. When he came back, the kitchen was already on fire. My throat felt like it was blocked by something. In my dazed thoughts, I seemed to feel that evening again. The high temperature from the flames still lingered in the air. I dragged Diana out of the room. Grabbing her collar, I asked fiercely, "Do you want to die?" My whole person and my voice were trembling. She didn't argue with me aggressively like before. Instead, she was silent for a very long time, then asked me in a hoarse voice, "Wouldn't it be better if I died?" Wouldn't it be a relief for you too? It seemed to be at that moment. I suddenly realized the once high and mighty heiress of the Miller family was now just a blustering, decadent kitten. So I panted, pushing her into the room. The walls, scorched by the flames, were black. I unbuttoned her buttons one by one and whispered, "I don't have dinner anymore. You compensate me." She seemed to realize something. "You think well." The rest of the words were blocked by my forceful kiss and swallowed. "Diana, I don't think you're a burden." That night, it seemed as if the whole world was in chaotic disarray, with only us remaining. And at this moment, she brought up old matters again. The intimate fiancé sitting beside her was Chris. The whole world thought that was a memory unique to the two of them. A suffocating bitterness exploded in my heart. In the too close distance, a certain familiar yet strange scent emanating from Diana was silently enveloping me, overwhelming, but it no longer belonged to me. She paused for a moment, and amidst the applause of the live audience, finally said, "I will always remember, the moonlight that night was bright enough to illuminate everything clearly." I couldn't see, but I listened to him talk all night. I clutched the pen in my hand and hastily lowered my head. My eyes ached. Because I temporarily modified the questions, I asked many things that everyone didn't know before. This interview was a great success. By the end of the show, the audience in the live stream room had exceeded 10 million. It was the first time to uncover the details of the unspeakable secret past of the Miller family's head. Everyone seemed very excited. Backstage, Ms. Young patted my shoulder. "You're truly a reporter. These impromptu questions are so sharp that people can't help but answer." But as soon as I turned my head, I saw Diana and Chris walking over. She suddenly fell silent. Diana's gaze swept over indifferently. "Were today's questions prepared by you?" I nodded. Chris said with veiled hostility, "Reporter Miller, you're quite good at hitting people's sore spots. But I want to remind you, you must adhere to basic professional ethics. Don't covet what you don't deserve." I didn't say anything. I just looked at Diana again. Her expression was sharp. She just said indifferently, "Reporter Miller is very capable. From now on, you will continue to handle media liaison for our company." Chris suddenly looked at me. His eyes were full of fear and hatred. He stopped me in an empty corner, his eyes wary and disgusted. "Frank Miller, you are truly insatiable. You clearly took money from me back then. What are you doing back now?" I calmly looked at him. "I graduated and came back to work." A very ordinary sentence. Work? Frank Miller, do you think I'm stupid? He, however, suddenly went crazy, yelling at me. "Get lost quickly. Tell him you voluntarily asked to give up the work liaison. Otherwise, don't expect to have another good day." I ignored him, turned around, and left. Chris kept his word. I suddenly started hitting walls everywhere. Several job opportunities that should have been mine were temporarily taken by others. That evening before leaving work, my boss suddenly called me into his office. "Next month, there's a very important annual development press conference. You go be the host." I was slightly stunned for a moment, listening to him say, "Ms. Miller specifically requested you." After work, on the roadside opposite the company, a very familiar Rolls-Royce was parked. The car window opened, revealing Diana's indifferent face. "Since Reporter Miller is so curious about my past, why don't you ask me directly?" I lower my head. "I didn't mean to pry into Ms. Miller's privacy. It's just for work." "Even if it's for work, I gave you my private business card. You could have contacted me to ask." I pursed my lips. No need. Because at this moment, I suddenly realized that it was already 3 years later. She was the powerful Ms. Miller, not the short-tempered, kitten-like girl who, after being lectured, would pitifully cling to me for kisses and comfort. The Johnson family was already in decline. Without Diana's tacit approval and indulgence, Chris would never dare to target me so openly. Perhaps, for her, that past was actually shameful, something she didn't want to be mentioned. I wanted to leave, but Diana called out to me. "Stop." She pushed open the car door, stepped out, and blocked my path. "Mr. Miller, shall we talk?" I asked in a hoarse voice. "What does Ms. Miller want to talk about?" Diana curved her lips. Her gaze towards me held a hint of helplessness. "Talk about work, okay?" For the next half-month, Diana came to find me twice more, to verify several important decisions to be announced at the press conference. Finally, as if she suddenly remembered something, she handed me a document. A large-scale tourism project that hasn't been announced yet. It's a direct collaboration with the state. You can announce it at the press conference as an exclusive scoop you uncovered. I was silent for a moment. I took it and said thank you. "Mr. Williams knew about this and kept urging me. It seems Ms. Miller quite appreciates you. Why don't you subtly mention Chris's suppression of you?" I revised the hosting script and smiled. No need. Would she really make things difficult for her fiancé, for a stranger reporter? On the day of the press conference, The venue was packed with people. The seat in the very center, which should have been Diana's, was empty. Amidst the flashing of countless spotlights, I was announcing several important upcoming collaborations for the Miller Corporation. Suddenly, an unfamiliar reporter stood up and loudly reprimanded me. "Where did you steal this top-secret information from?" I sternly said, "My cooperation with the Miller Corporation is entirely through legitimate public channels." "Legitimate? Someone like you, who climbed up through illicit means, dares to say such things?" He shouted loudly. "I have evidence." Someone walked onto the stage. It was Chris. He stared at me and sighed softly. "Frank Miller, it's normal for a small reporter like you to be attracted to Diana. I originally wanted to save you some face, but you really won't shed tears until you see the coffin." The large screen behind suddenly switched from the PPT to several explicit photos. And the person in the photos was me. "You sent him these photos, going to his hotel room door in a towel in the middle of the night, and surveillance footage of you and your boss checking into a room." As she spoke, the large screen behind changed again. At the dimly lit hotel entrance, my boss and I walked in side by side. Amidst the uproar, the main entrance of the hall suddenly opened. Diana strode in, her sharp gaze sweeping across the entire hall. It also swept across my face without any pause. My heart suddenly sank. The stage spotlight shone on me like some kind of public execution in front of everyone. For a moment, there was a buzz of discussion below the stage. Doing such things, he's simply a disgrace to our reporters. Too despicable, truly disgusting. No professional ethics at all. Ban him. I looked at no one, just stared intently at Diana. Watching her look at Chris, she said indifferently, "What did you just say?" Chris said, "Diana, you've been deceived by him. He deliberately disguised himself as an exclusive reporter to approach you, just to steal confidential information from you, which is detrimental to the entire Miller Corporation. Even this opportunity to independently host the conference was obtained through illicit means." Diana was silent for a moment, then looked at me. "Do you have anything to say?" What did I have to say? In Chris's gaze, I felt his hatred and satisfaction. I suddenly felt incredibly absurd. He and I were only 2 years apart. We were biological brothers from the same father and mother. After our mother passed away, he and I should have been the only, most intimate people left in the world. I gave a mocking laugh. "Ms. Miller, your fiancé is talking nonsense and deliberately spreading rumors. If you love him and therefore want to watch him distort facts and fabricate stories, I will also truthfully write this matter into today's press conference news release. The public has eyes, and project developed by such an indiscriminate decision-maker probably cannot be trusted either. Whether it was the previously rebellious heiress, or the rumored decisive and powerful head now. Hearing such an open threat, anyone should get angry. But she just walked onto the stage step by step in the light, standing at the same height, facing me from a distance, calling my name in a very soft voice. Frank Miller. My heart was filled with a sudden pang of bitterness. I didn't want to hear her defend Chris anymore. I turned my head away and said word by word, "All the accusations against me above are groundless rumors." No contact. Before I could finish speaking, I was suddenly interrupted by Diana's voice. "You gave me a ring, but you don't plan to be responsible for me?" I was startled and suddenly turned my head to look at her. She raised her left hand, revealing the extremely simple silver ring on her left ring finger. It was made of cheap material, and the craftsmanship was ordinary. But because of the owner's careful maintenance, it reflected brilliant light under the illumination. This ring seemed to instantly drag me back to memories from 4 years ago. That day was originally Diana's 19th birthday. For the first 18 years of her life, every birthday was extravagant and lively. Only this time, she was so down and out that only I was with her. To make her happy, I worked for 2 days in between revising my thesis. With the $200 I earned, I bought a pair of cheap couple rings. After returning, I grabbed her hand and put it on her. Diana couldn't see, but she could feel it. Her ears were red, but she still forced herself to ask me, "What is this?" I teased her. A couple was arguing on the roadside and throwing things. I squatted there for a long time, picked up this ring. "Ms. Miller, don't despise it. Don't call me that." She carefully protected the cheap silver ring in her embrace. "I like it even if it's picked up, because you gave it to me." She kept her word. In the days that followed, she always wore that ring, never took it off. I snapped back from my memories. Diana was approaching me step by step. "Speak, Frank Miller." "Nothing to say," I whispered. "Ms. Miller, you've mistaken me for someone else. Isn't this ring a token of love from your fiancé, Mr. Johnson?" She scoffed. "I never said where this ring came from. How do you know so clearly?" As she spoke, she had already stopped in front of me, the close distance unavoidable. Below the stage, there were whispers. What does that mean? MS. Miller said that the person who accompanied her through her low point was actually that young reporter. Then what about Chris? Don't tell me. They really do look quite alike. Chris looked at me with eyes full of hatred, but he had to soften his tone to coax Diana. Diana, you know me best. I've been with you for so many years. How could I do such a thing? Diana lowered her eyes, looking at him below the stage, and smiled. Don't be afraid. Aren't you fully proven? The lawyers are already here. Everything today will be truthfully recorded and documented for evidence. Her voice was gentle and pleasant, as if comforting. Chris, however, seemed to have seen some terrifying monster, and suddenly began to tremble all over. The press conference could not continue. I packed up my hosting script, turned around, and left the stage. Diana silently followed behind me. It's raining outside. I'll give you a ride. The heavy rain poured down like water. I thought for 3 seconds, and still decided not to inconvenience myself. As I got into Diana's Rolls-Royce, I turned my head to look and saw a hint of secret joy in her eyes. However, when I took out my phone, I then realized that what happened at the press conference had already been live-streamed. It was trending. Under several topics, netizens were arguing fiercely. So Chris took credit for that young reporter's work? How shameless. What do you mean took credit? For a man who climbed up through illicit means, whose lying is still uncertain. It's been verified. Those explicit photos are photoshopped. Even if it really was him, he was just doing a job for money from the start. The job's done. The money's taken. What's he got to complain about? Am I the only one who thinks Diana is so miserable? Neither of the two men is any good. Both are deceiving her. My heart suddenly felt choked by something. I hastily turned off my phone and looked away. The rainwater was like tiny rivers flowing across the glass window, mixing the rapidly receding lights outside the window into a jumbled, colorful mass. Compared to 3 years ago, the scenery of this city was unchanged. But between Diana and me, it had already changed drastically. At that time, the Miller family invited the most renowned experts to come out. After 2 surgeries, Diana finally regained her sight. The bodyguards Chris hired at a high price guarded me 24 hours a day, strictly preventing me, fearing I would go see Diana and tell her the truth. However, on the day she regained her sight, that group of people, however, actively brought me to the hospital. Through the hospital room door, I couldn't see Diana, but I could hear her insecure voice. Chris. Diana, I'm here. Chris whispered. I'm really worried about you. His deliberately altered voice was almost identical to mine. Diana didn't notice anything unusual. She just spoke somewhat unhappily. You said that after I regained my sight, you would be the first person I see. You broke your promise. I didn't listen to the rest of the words. The sudden surge of intense pain in my heart almost swallowed me whole. From the very beginning, in Diana's world, the person who accompanied her through those 2 years was Chris. Not me. No Frank Miller. Chris's bodyguards dragged me into an adjacent lounge. After a while, she walked in. The expression on her face was as arrogant as ever. Only her lip had a small cut, still bleeding. Diana kissed me. She really loves me. She can't live without me. She said to me unhurriedly, in these 2 years, you took very good care of her. But for her, I did all of this. Someone of your lowly status, you will never, ever be able to have any connection with her. Were you going home? Diana's voice suddenly sounded, interrupting my memories. I slightly lowered my head. Miller, could you please drop me off at the company? I still have some work to deal with. However, she didn't start the car. Instead, she rested one hand on the steering wheel and leaned over. Her expression actually looked a bit sad. Frank, do you have to use such an unfamiliar address for me? Her familiar scent, so close, mixed with the crisp smell of rain, entwined around me. It almost dragged me back into countless past memories. At this moment, I suddenly didn't want to endure it anymore. I pushed her away and looked at her coldly. Otherwise, how should I call you? Should I call you young lady or Diana? Do you want to be like 3 years ago again, when I was injured protecting you? You called out Chris's name to me. She suddenly fell silent. Those 2 years are over, and the person you were engaged to was Chris all along. Your life is back on track. Why are you bothering me again? But this is not my right track. Diana looked at me, her eyes gradually reddening. I had never even met Chris before. From the very beginning, the person I recognized was only you. A dense, solid pain welled up from my heart. I closed my eyes, and when I opened my mouth, my voice trembled uncontrollably. You're still lying to me. Diana, the day you regained your sight, I was outside the hospital room door, listening to you, without any doubt, mistake Chris for me. She suddenly interrupted me. I didn't. The first second I opened my eyes, I knew he wasn't you. I was suddenly stunned, hearing Diana's seemingly calm voice. The Miller family situation is very complicated. In that hospital room that day, there was more than one monster with malicious intentions, wanting to kill me. So the moment I realized he wasn't you, I made a decision. Chris was the best, the most perfect target. She curved her lips, and the smile that appeared in her eyes carried a sharp, cold edge. Doesn't he like to impersonate? Then let him impersonate to his heart's content. Some images from news reports suddenly flashed through my mind. I saw them while studying abroad for my master's degree. It said that Chris encountered a real explosion during filming and almost died in the fire. It also said that when he and Diana were traveling together, he was hit by a huge billboard and almost died. I didn't intentionally not recognize you. In these 3 years, many things have actually happened. After Grandpa passed away, one Miller family member after another jumped out, wanting to kill me. But now they are either in jail or in the underworld. This even includes my biological mother. Actually, I'm not afraid of death. When my cousin was forced to give up all his shares, he went crazy and stabbed me, but I didn't feel any pain. At that moment, I just missed you very much. The parking lot was silent all around. Under the dim car lights, she took off her suit, revealing the scar on her chest near her heart. The Miller family is too chaotic. It's not that easy to get. But it doesn't matter. After today, Chris and the last forces that supported him should also fall. The entire Miller family, including me, can be yours. She leaned in little by little, gazing at me from a close distance. Those eyes in the past were always hazy and unfocused. Now, they were bright, as if holding the stars of the entire universe. I swallowed and whispered, "But you already in Chris." I have never kissed him, never. She slightly emphasized her tone. In my life, I have only kissed you. With just this one sentence, the string of reason in my mind completely snapped. As I lunged forward to pull open her collar, countless fervent past memories flooded my mind. Her low point was also the 2 most unstable and bewildered years of my life. Those reckless, unvented emotions. In the end, they all turned into our desperate entanglement. By the time the wind and rain stopped, it was already late at night. Diana drove the car to a villa. I took out my phone and saw a news item on the trending topics with a bright red breaking tag. Hashtag Chris taken for investigation. Last month, my half-brother contacted him, threatening him with knowing his secrets, to steal bidding documents and other confidential files from me. I was silent for a moment and whispered, "I know. You know." Diana suddenly turned her head. "Did you arrange it, Frank?" I nodded, pinching my palm, forcing myself to gaze at her. "I came back this time to destroy the Johnson family, destroy Chris, and overturn the case from 20 years ago where the Johnson family slandered my mother. For this outcome, I can pay any price. I work in media. This is the most important reason. 20 years ago, because she fell for my dad, the young Ms. Johnson set up a trap to frame my mother, saying she was involved in prostitution. And young Chris, in order to live the life of a young master, actually helped outsiders. He personally pushed his own mother into the abyss. My mother was detained for 15 days, and she lost her job. After returning home, all the neighbors pointed fingers at her and sided with my dad. After my parents divorced, my mother, bearing such a shameful reputation, took me and returned to the countryside in disgrace. She was melancholic and passed away from illness just after turning 50. And on the day she passed away, on the hospital TV, news about the Johnson family was being reported. They said that the Johnson couple were loving, their children excellent, a model even among wealthy families. How ridiculous! When my mother died, she weighed less than 70 pounds. Her hands were covered in bluish-purple needle marks. She could have lived to 100. The Johnson family's business isn't clean either. They've harmed so many people. Do they deserve to be called a model? I covered my eyes, forcing back the surging tears. Diana, I used you because I knew you wouldn't let go of someone who betrayed you, so I let him deliberately cross your boundaries. It's okay if you feel hurt and resent me because of this, but I must personally send him to hell. I suppressed all emotions, making myself gaze at her as calmly as possible. But Frank, your hand is trembling. Diana grabbed my hand, which was behind my back, carefully brought it to her lips, and kissed it. Don't be afraid. You used me. I'm more than happy about it. That proves you have me in your heart. Of course I'll be on your side. I said, the entire Miller family, including me, is yours. The matter of Chris being taken for investigation caused a huge stir on the trending topics for 3 days. The Johnson family wanted to suppress public opinion, so they appealed to Diana. She sat behind her desk, listened to their request, and smiled. What you said is very touching, but how this matter is to be decided, I'm sorry, It has to be up to my fiancé. My dad, with his wealthy wife, turned his head and saw me. His face immediately changed. I gave him a slight smile. You two should prepare yourselves quickly, because soon you will be just like him. Diana held a press conference to clarify her relationship with Chris. Facing the questions, she gave a half-smile. Fiancé, I never admitted it was him. I've always been talking about the one who accompanied and took care of me back then. Someone asked, but wasn't it because he took Chris's money that he wanted to take care of you? Diana still had a smile on her lips, but her eyes grew colder inch by inch. Reporter, I advise you to be careful with your words and actions. There are so many rich people in this world. Why did he only take money to take care of me? Isn't it because he loves me? The reporter fell silent. The reporter was silent. I, sitting next to her, also fell silent. After this press conference, I released the recordings from when he came to find me back then. A blind person and a discarded child of a wealthy family who would want to take care of her. She only raised me for a few days. She's dead. So why should I give her money? Do you still want to keep me here, living a life as poor as yours, unable to afford a burial plot, even after death? Public opinion was in an uproar. No way. I remember his public image always being a noble and generous male celebrity. So he and Frank Miller are biological brothers, and he actively asked someone to replace him. His entire outfit costs over $1 million, and he won't even pay for his own mother's burial plot. How disgusting. I took advantage of this rampant public opinion and started a live broadcast. In front of millions of people, I revealed the truth from 20 years ago. Ms. Johnson, the heiress of the Johnson family, fell for my dad. They refused to clarify things and divorced. They insisted on colluding to frame my mother, making her bear a shameful reputation and live her life in disgrace. Standing behind me was a timid man with a buzz cut. During my graduate studies and internship, I inquired everywhere, putting in a lot of effort. Only then did I find this person's whereabouts from a senior colleague. He had a habit of petty theft and had been in trouble a few times later. That incident back then was orchestrated by Ms. Johnson, and Ms. Miller was indeed innocent. She was tricked by her own son into a Johnson family banquet, drank too much. I helped her into a room and put a stack of money under the pillow. Ms. Johnson had someone call the police in advance. Before my mother, who had been deliberately plied with alcohol, could sober up, the door was pushed open by the vice squad. Even now, framing a woman, spreading rumors, and labeling her a harlot is effortless. Moreover, in that era, I majored in media and work in media, not just for this one case. I will dedicate the rest of my life to vindicating all those who have been wronged. This live broadcast added the final spark to the downfall of the Johnson family. From the very beginning, their means of accumulating wealth were not clean. Now, with strict investigations underway, they essentially walked into a trap. All along, it wasn't me supporting them, but my good half-brother. Diana said, there are just some collaborations on projects, which can be withdrawn at any time, so there's no need to worry about it affecting me. I finally felt relieved. I submitted all the evidence collected over the years to the police. Thanks to Diana's clean break from those people after taking over the Miller family, she was not implicated. The day the Johnson family was completely destroyed, I held a bouquet of flowers and took Diana to the cemetery to visit my mother. In the photo on the tombstone, her smile was still so gentle, but it always carried a hint of sadness. She was a kind and gentle woman, and she truly loved my dad. And because of that, she never recovered for all these years. Before she died, lying on her sickbed, she clutched my hand and told me not to blame Chris. She said, your brother is not a biological descendant of the Johnson family. He must have had a very difficult time there. She didn't know. For all these years, Chris had been relying on belittling and humiliating her to gain favor in front of Ms. Johnson and gradually establish himself in the entire Johnson family. From the day he was brought into the Johnson family, he began to rot. I looked at the photo on the tombstone. Mom, no one will ever think you were wrong about that matter again. Diana stood aside and whispered to correct me. Fiancé. Okay, fiancé. I subconsciously twirled a silver ring on my left ring finger, which matched Diana's. After going abroad that year, I hid it at the bottom of a box. I thought I would never have the chance to wear it again in this lifetime. I tidied up the bouquet in front of the tombstone, stood up, and bowed. Turning back, Diana gazed at me. Frank, you go wait for me in the car outside. I want to say a few words to your aunt alone. The autumn night wind was cool. I waited in the car for a long time before I saw Diana return. Her trench coat was damp with dew. I turned my face and asked her, what did you say to my mom? She started the car. It was a long while before she spoke. I just said, Thank you for bringing you into this world. Otherwise, I would have died in the summer 5 years ago at the lowest point of my life. When everything settled, I successfully became a full-time employee and even got a small promotion. I started to independently take charge of interview assignments. It was about a high school girl who had been bullied by wealthy students at school for a year. She jumped from the school rooftop. That group of people are rich and powerful. No one can afford to offend them. My boss looked at me, hesitant to speak. If you don't want to go, of course I'm going. I took the document. Coincidentally, regarding this bullying theme, I'm working on a proposal for an advocacy campaign. I'll send it to you for review this afternoon. Rarely, Diana was now rich and powerful. With her backing, of course I had to make use of it. This interview, along with the subsequent anti-bullying advocacy campaign, kept me busy for half a month. I barely met Diana. She sent 20 messages, and I only had time to reply with an emoji in between biting my bread and checking public opinion. That night, she said she had a surprise for me and asked me to definitely come home. I pushed open the door. The night sky was full of twinkling stars. In the room filled with hot mist, she looked at me. Her gaze was sticky, lingering on me. Only a small lamp was left by the bedside. Moonlight streamed in like melted ice water. Even so, it still couldn't cool down the humid hot mist in the room by a bit. "Frank, kiss me." "Silly, don't be so nervous," blended with her eyes, full of seductive color, full of temptation. By the time the storm subsided, it was already the latter half of the night, with the sky turning pale. I suddenly remembered something. Next month, I'm going on a business trip out of town for a very important interview about a young girl in the mountains who has been collectively abused by villagers for a long time. She walked alone in the mountains all night before reaching a town's internet cafe to contact me. That place is quite backward. Local forces are deeply entrenched. It's probably not easy to get in, so I'll stay longer. She suddenly sat up. "There will be danger." "Then let there be." I didn't care much, rolled over and sat up, pouring her a glass of water. Seeing her staring at me intently, I then reassured her, "I will protect myself as much as possible. But this kind of thing is inherently the mission and responsibility of us media workers." Diana was silent for a moment. She suddenly said, "I'll go with you. But don't you have a very important contract to discuss next week? It can be postponed." I tried to reason with her. The unspoken words that followed were all blocked by Diana's passionate kiss. The kiss traveled down, stopping at my neck, wet and panting. She whispered, "Because I am your most loyal guardian. You just go and pursue your ideals. I will escort you."